Clapperboard Kivy tutorial for beginners, build your first Python app. Hey everyone, hand waving. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to learn how to build a simple mobile or desktop application using Kivy, which is a powerful Python framework for creating cross-platform apps. So if you already have a basic understanding of Python and you've been wondering, can I use Python to build apps with buttons, windows, and user interfaces? Then this video is perfect for you. By the end of this tutorial, you will understand what Kivy is and what it's used for, learn how to install and set it up properly, and most importantly, build your very first Kivy application step by step. Don't worry if you're a beginner, we'll go through everything slowly and clearly. Alright, let's get started. Light bulb. What is Kivy? So first, what exactly is Kivy? Kivy is an open-source Python framework that allows you to develop applications that can run on multiple platforms, including Windows, macOS, Linux, Android, and even iOS. This means you don't have to rewrite your code for different devices. You can write it once and run it almost anywhere. Kivy is especially popular for touchscreen applications, multi-touch interfaces, interactive apps, and simple mobile applications using Python. Another great thing about Kivy is that it doesn't rely on traditional UI elements of the operating system. Instead, it uses its own rendering engine, which gives you more flexibility in designing your app. So overall, if you want to create modern-looking apps using Python, Kivy is a great choice. Gear installation. Now that we know what Kivy is, let's install it. First, open your terminal or command prompt. Then type the following command: pip install Kivy. Make sure you have Python and pip already installed on your system before running this. The installation might take a few minutes depending on your internet speed, so just wait for it to finish. Once it's done, we need to check if Kivy was installed correctly. Open Python by typing Python, then enter import Kivy, print Kivy __version__. If you see a version number printed on the screen, that means Kivy is successfully installed and ready to use. If you encounter any errors, double-check your Python installation or try reinstalling Kivy. Basic structure. Now let's talk about the basic structure of a Kivy app. Every Kivy application usually has three main parts. First, the app class. This is the main entry point of your application. It controls how your app starts and runs. Second, the layout. This defines how elements are arranged on the screen, whether they are stacked vertically, horizontally, or positioned in a grid. And third, widgets. Widgets are the actual UI elements that users interact with, such as buttons, labels, text inputs, images. Understanding these three components will help you build more complex apps later on. But for now, let's keep things simple and create our first app. Test tube first app. Alright, now it's time to build your very first Kivy application. First, create a new file and name it main.py. Then, type the following code. From kivy.app, import app from kivy.u. Label, import label class myapp, app, def build, self, return label, text equals, hello, Kivy. If __name __equals _main __myapp. Run. Let's quickly understand what's happening here. We imported the app class, which is required to create the application. Then we imported label, which is a simple widget used to display text. We created a class called myapp that inherits from app. Inside the build method, we returned a label widget with the text, hello, Kivy. Finally, we ran the application using myapp.run. Now go ahead and run the file. If everything works correctly, party popper, you should see a window pop up with the text, hello, Kivy. And just like that, you've created your first Kivy application.
Editor so that we can write some code and launch our very first Kivy application. So the way we're going to do this is very simple, very straightforward. As I mentioned before, we're only going to show one label. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to import from kivy.app import app. So this will enable you to create and launch a Kivy application. Then from Kivy.uix, so this is the UI library, you're going to import, actually from label, you're going to import label with the uppercase L. This is what will allow us to type this hello world on our screen. Next, now that we've completed our imports, we want to actually create our application. The way we're going to do so is using Python object-oriented programming. Now, even though you might not be familiar totally with Python OOP, what I'm going to show you is I'm going to explain everything step by step, and you can just follow along. You don't have to be a Python object-oriented programming professional. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a class, and this class we're just going to call it Basic App. You can also call this My App, so whatever you want, but we're going to call it Basic App. So let's just go for that. And then this is how we're going to define the class. You need to, of course, put a pair of parentheses as well as a colon. Now in Kivy, one thing that's super important, when you're creating your own application and you name it whatever you want, this should actually be a subclass of the class app. So app is a superclass for Basic App. What does this mean? Basic App will inherit all of the properties of the app class. This means that Basic App will have all the properties that app already has. So they will have everything in common, and then you can add stuff yourself, obviously, as you code and develop your Basic App. So this is how inheritance works in Python. So you have app, it has a set of properties and functions and things like that. Basic App will inherit all of those, and then we're going to add onto it as we develop our application. So this is just the very basics. Then what we're going to do for this class, we're going to define a function called build. This function is super important in Kivy. So of course we're going to say self because this function belongs to this class. This function is important. Why? Build must always return the root widget that you're going to use in your application. What do I mean by root widget? The root widget is essentially the parent widget of everything else. In our case, we don't have any widgets at all. We only have one widget, which is the label. So this is what it's going to be. So I will say label equals to label with a uppercase L. And then I'm just going to specify something called the text. And here we're just going to say hello world. So this is the label. I saved it inside a Python variable. As I said before, the build function always has to return the root widget, so we just have to return label. This is our root widget. Okay? Now, we're far from done. The last thing you need to do is you need to create an app. So we're going to create a variable called app, and this will be an instance of the Basic App class. So by doing Basic App and then putting a pair of parentheses, this allows me to create an instance of this Basic App class. Okay? The final step is we need to actually run this app, and we do so using app.run. Now that we call app.run, this should allow us to open up this Kivy interface. So let's come here and press run to run our code, and you can see we have opened up this very basic Kivy application. As you can see right here, it's open. There's this label called Hello World, which is exactly what I showed you at the start. And yeah, that's really it for our first basic app using Kivy. So that's really it for this video. I hope you found it useful, and I hope you were able to both install and set up and actually use Kivy for the very first time on your desktop. Do let me know if you had any problems. Let me know in the comments, and I'll be sure to check it out when I have time. And yeah, that's really it for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.